Hello, welcome to my reading of My Mother's Death Went Viral on Shock Sites, and I Know Whatever Killed Her Will Kill Me Too. Written by Toothachen. Well, it's been a little while, but I'm back at it with a new house, a new baby, and a brand new silent laptop. So now, sit down, shut up, and listen. It wasn't one of those typical mother deaths you often hear about, like cancer or some sort of terminal illness. She flew through the windshield of the family's Honda Civic and landed in the middle of the opposing lane. The nearby SUV had a dashcam, and apparently her airtime was around 8 seconds. The dashcam video of her death has been passed around gore forums and shock sites since the October it happened. October 2022, and as of writing this, 27 January 2023, it has been 3 months. The first response my family issued to the accident was that it was a family's Butterknife, which is what my late maternal grandmother called what is widely known as a family curse. She called it that because her mother died from a wound suffered from a butter knife. It was unlikely, almost impossible, but it happened. And that's what happened to all my female maternal ancestors. They all died odd deaths in adulthood, only after they had given birth to a child. The firstborn would always be a female, and it is this child that would receive the family butter knife. It was a miracle in my family when I, the firstborn, was male, and so were my 2 siblings. Both of them are male. It was like the butter knife curse was over. But it wasn't. You may think, if the curse is so prominent in your family, why didn't your ancestors just not have children? The universe had a way of solving that one. It's the reason why my mother never had a father figure growing up. My family found solace in me, being a symbol of hope in the midst of existential turmoil. I carried the emotional burden, being watched carefully in my every move, yet not being allowed to speak up about it. Everything I said was taken so intensely serious. Every joke missed, and was analyzed to the point that was no longer a joke, but a swing at the family and my ancestors. I'd say at the dinner table, "This lamb is amazing. Too bad you don't like it." It's not funny, but it was always an attempt to lighten the mood. Everybody incessantly wore these drab faces, as if they were always in mourning for people long gone. Especially Mum. I'm sure she felt like some sort of ticking time bomb, just ready to die at any moment. It must have been agony to not know whether she'd die by the family butter knife. And if she did, what would the cause be? As her children were almost grown up, she knew it wasn't long before she would find out. Your father spent so long making us lamb. Your grandmother would be rolling in her grave if she heard how ungrateful you sound, Mum would say. She was such a sweet mother, so nurturing and loving, but if you said the wrong thing, she could really turn ugly. No, I was just cheering you guys up. You look so sad, I'd respond lightheartedly. Excuse me? Of course now, I'd kill to hear her say that to me, even if it made me feel horrible. We knew the butter knife was close when she started acting strangely. She'd sleepwalk and walked into my room in my deepest sleep. I wouldn't even know she was there until morning. She'd also experienced these senseless hallucinations, most having to do with cars. We would never let her drive alone after she told us that, but she flew under our radar eventually. She'd also have this delusion about pool tables and pool balls or whatever. "Sammy," she cried to the thick air above the staircase, inching towards my bedroom. "Yes," I'd respond. "Come here." I softly stepped down the staircase and followed her voice into the kitchen. She stood before the open kitchen cabinet. It was completely empty. "Explain this," she said coldly. "Explain what?" "Don't be smart. Where did my billiard balls go? Your father and I need these for pool." "You don't have a pool table." "Of course we do. Now, where did you put them?" "Mom, I don't have them," I said slowly, sounding out my syllables. "Ah, I found one," she said, ducking down quick enough that it looked like her puffy hair floated down out of sync, and picked up an invisible object. "Where are the others, Sammy?" she said, restlessly tapping her foot. "I don't have them, Mum." "Then where the fuck are they?" she bellowed and threw the invisible object at me. She violently flinched and her face turned sorrowful as she creeped towards me, tirelessly apologizing for hurting me. "I'm so sorry, Sammy. I didn't mean it. I've just been really stressed lately," she sobbed. Kissing her on the spot on my forehead, I assumed she thought she hit when she threw the billiard ball. "It's okay, Mum. It didn't even hurt. Not physically." My father took her to various psychiatric hospitals, but she'd either be refused entry for some unforsaken reason, or be let out in less than a week. It was hopeless. At this point, the whole family was praying for her to die without pain. I woke up on that nameless day in October at midday, with a more than usual amount of notifications on my phone. A lot more. Exactly 73 more than the usual 1 notification I get in the morning. A lot of apologies. People reaching out to schedule events. People asking for permission to come over to my house. My father and 2 brothers weren't in the house, so I woke up completely clueless and yearning for answers. I think they thought I would handle the news better if I was well rested. They even turned off my alarm to prolong my sleep. I miss her so much. She wanted an open casket funeral, but what the people scraped off of the concrete could only be cremated or put in a jar and buried. We still respected her wishes, and what lay instead of her peaceful corpse in the coffin was a little rose gold urn, the size of a Christmas mug. At the beginning of the month, a video popped up on my feed on Reddit. A woman flew out of the front of a car on a busy highway and landed in front of a speeding trailer car. I was subscribed to some questionable subreddits, so these kinds of posts were not unnatural for me, but I immediately knew it was my mother in the video. I knew it was an infamous shock video because it had about 1 million trademarks and website names burned into the corners, and had the quality of a plasma TV left on the kids' channel for a week. I opened the comments, and all of them were making jokes about her, the way she flew, how far she flew, and what she was wearing. I was immediately blinded by the thick tears shooting from my eyes. I hadn't even felt upset at first. It was just instinct to immediately cry so I can get it over with, when the full impact of the video would hit me later. A few weeks later, close to now, is when my brothers and I started seeing the visions. Every time, during random intervals during the day, we'd all collectively see a stark forest swaying under the overcast sky. It was haunting, like something was in the shadows between the thin trees, just watching as we stood before it, waiting for the vision to end. It was nothing like Mother's eccentric hallucinations and visions, extreme, and packed full of rich and unending information. It was just a forest. "What do you think it is?" I said dryly. Sat on a second-hand rattan chair on my parents' porch, to my brothers in front of me. This was after the third vision we all had. At that time, we were compelled enough to talk to each other about it. "I hope it's not what I think it is," Julian, the youngest, said, after a drag of the slim cigarette fastened between his thumb and pointer finger. "It's only a female thing. We know that," said Francis, the middle. "Who knows?" We sat in silence around the wisp of cigarette smoke flying into the air. Maybe to where people go when they die. Maybe the cigarette smoke goes to where Mom is now. I just want to get on a monorail-shaped wisp and fly up to see Mom. "Do you remember," I muttered, then snatched Julian's cigarette and took a puff, "when Mom took us all to the beach, and Francis almost got washed away by the waves?" We chuckled a bit and fell back into our grim state of mind. "I don't remember that," blurted Francis. "What? How? That got on the news. The local newspaper. That doesn't count." "Of course it counts. You're like 11, too. There's no excuse as to why you forgot that." "Maybe it wasn't important." "Of course it was. It scared us. A lot. Mom wouldn't talk about it for a week." "Remember, Sammy," started Julian, "when Mom didn't talk to you for a day, when you joked about Francis getting washed away? I don't even think the joke was that bad." Too soon. If there were any wounds of mine that had just healed, they definitely just opened up again. Thought about Mom's helpless body, flying through the mid-autumn's air. I wonder if the cars around, watching her when it happened, were horrified by the sight of an alive person about to die an unfulfilling death, or if they laughed at her. She was such a gentle soul. It was simply unfair that she had to die such a tragic and public death, not peaceful or with family. She had her good moments, amazing moments, in fact. "Remember that month where she'd take us to the armory every weekend," I said. "The armory stopped being in use after the Second World War, and it's now an overgrown field used as a bike track. Mom was so happy there, watching us fly around and playing in the grass like the kids we didn't realize we were. She knew she was on borrowed time, but she sure did reflect on those memories with relish." We all fell silent as the fourth vision blinded us. The forest again. I almost felt the cold gusts brush me, but I ignored them when I saw the moving shadows behind the trees. I don't know if I noticed them before, but the sight was almost tranquil. "Want to talk about it?" I asked them. Julian took another drag and looked pensively at the wooden planks underneath our feet. Air around us felt melancholy and blue, as if a filter were laid over the earth. I didn't want to be there anymore. I had this huge thing when I was younger, growing up with synesthesia, but when words and atmospheres felt even slightly sad-like, I would be faced with unbearable discomfort. The slightest movements translated into a bitter green, like the pond water, or a velvet red turned into a melodic blue in my mind, and it was like the world around me crumbled. But I'm sure everybody had things like that when they were younger. Mom called it color vision. She told me that I saw the world differently to everybody else, and that it was completely okay. Other people just had to catch up. I drove home by myself, in the car I got for my 16th birthday. Francis was meant to get the household Honda Civic, but even if it wasn't wrecked from the crash, I don't think he would have been able to drive it anyway. Outside the front of my door was an 8-ball. I flipped it over to see if it was one of those 8 balls that you could shake and it would give you some yes or no answer. But it was a heavy, rock-solid billiard ball. I no longer wanted to go inside the apartment. I'm writing this story for 2 reasons. 1. Julian and Francis were reported missing from their homes at 8 a.m. this morning. It is now 5 p.m., and I've done nothing but sit in my home and write this to pass the time. 2. I want answers. I don't know if they're missing because of the Butterknife, but at this point, I've grieved over them many times over within my life. I don't just want answers to my situation, but why people can be so cruel, and if there are any ways I can get my mother back, even if it means going to that forest myself. But in the corners of every room, I see those shadows from the forest, and in every kitchen cabinet, the billiard balls I stole from Mom, and I can't help but feel like my life, or at least any joy I've ever felt in my miraculous life, is coming to an end. But I have nothing to do now but pray. Pray for my brothers, and my mother. Pray that my mother rests easy, oblivious to her posthumous fame. Pray that my brothers didn't go into that forest from the visions. And pray that the family curse doesn't take me too. Thank you for listening. If you'd be so kind as to hit like, subscribe, and click on the notification bell. And remember, if you see visions of a specific forest in your head, don't go there. Just don't go there. Take your medicine. I don't know, man. I'm not a psychiatrist. Kisses.